next episode of the Soulful Eclectic. I'm your host, Diana Collins, and I want to welcome you to today's episode. I am the host, the creator of this podcast, and if this is the first time you joining us, I want to say welcome. If you have joined us before and you listened to a few episodes, I want to say thank you for your continued support, and I hope you share any of the content in the episodes with friends, loved ones who may need to hear it. So with that, we're going to go right into our next episode. Namaste. Hey everyone. Hello and welcome back to the Soulful Eclectic. I'm your host, Diana Collins, and I want to welcome you back if you've been here and you've listened to the first series of episodes that I've had. But if this is your first time listening, I want to say thank you for joining me and welcome to the Soulful Tribe. And I hope that you continue to listen and grow with us as we move forward in this new journey. So today's episode will actually be about journeying and traveling. My husband and I love to travel, and we travel by air, by sea, by car, however. And we actually have been traveling a lot. But since COVID, we really haven't been going anywhere. We had to do a family emergency out to Florida, and I really don't count that as a really travel experience because that was an emergency and it wasn't planned, and we just kind of just jumped in on a flight and did what we needed to do and come back home. But, you know, we've taken trips for vacations, definitely for fun, spare of the moment kind of trips are our best ones. But do you guys know that traveling is really difficult with your spouse sometimes? I don't know. I've heard people have difficulties traveling, but I really didn't realize how hard it is to keep up a darn conversation when you're traveling and when you're with your spouse and you are with your spouse all the time and you guys conversate all the time. So when you're in a car for 6 to 6 hours plus, what in the tarnations do you talk about, right? So I was talking with my friend CJ, and she's like, you should have a podcast conversation about this one, because that is so true. Nobody knows what to talk about when they're traveling. And I'm like, okay. So I actually had a different episode for this day. So I just switched it up, and we're going to do this instead because it's a little more lighthearted than the conversations we've been having. So I thought I'd change it up a bit. So conversations with your spouse in the car. Now, my husband and I really have little trouble having conversations. He is an excellent book of knowledge in his head. He knows random facts, and he likes to have in-depth philosophical conversations on the regular. Now, me, on the other hand, that's a little difficult because I have always been that quiet individual. I was that student that was always quiet, and the teacher would constantly, I found old report cards from my teachers back in elementary school. And I went to a Catholic elementary school in Brooklyn. Our Lady of Lourdes. It's being renovated, so I don't know if any of my Brooklyn friends are listening. Check it out. But I was that quiet kid, and I would find old report cards that says, we really don't know if she's getting the work. She doesn't say much in class. She just sits there in class. Well, I didn't say much for many reasons, and one of the reasons was I was bullied all the time, so I didn't see a point in talking, and we'll talk about bullying in another episode. But so I was that quiet person, so I never talked and never had conversations because I felt that what I had to say wasn't relevant. And then as I grew up and started developing relationships with friends and boyfriends, girlfriends, all those friends, they never valued anything I had to say. So who wants to talk if no one's really listening? So I just learned to keep my thoughts to myself, and I've had many conversations with self. So yeah, I find it hard now as a grown adult to have those meaningful conversations. Plus, I don't think it helps that I'm an introvert, and I don't like talking unless I have something to talk about and it has a point. So having random pointless conversations is really hard for me, which is why I have some trouble sometimes in social situations. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. That's a whole nother conversation too. But yeah, so here I always have to search my mind to figure out what in the world am I going to talk about. So I've like created things to talk about, and the first time I found like this was really difficult was our drive moving out to Arizona. We drove to Arizona from Delaware, and that's about a 4 to 5 day drive, depending on how you break up the hours. We thought we were going to be these huh. I don't know if you guys know that term, but it's an army term that we used to shout out when we wanted to be the greatest of the great, and everything was good. So we were going to be these outstanding, drivers, and we thought we were going to do 12-hour drives. And yeah, that didn't work out very well. So we ended up breaking it up to 8-hour drives, and we ended up making it to Arizona, as you can see, 2 years ago. And conversations were hard. Like for him, it was hella easy. He found no problems talking, and he just had conversation after conversation. And I'm good with that, because if someone else can start the conversation, I can roll with it, and I'll jump in and I'll give my feedback, give my information, share my thoughts, ask my questions, whatever. But then it comes to me and it's like dead air. What do I talk about? Right? So I came up with this cool idea that whenever we decide to go on road trips, I would write down questions and things to have conversations. So my conversation starter list, and to see if this will help me be better at conversations, right? So the first time I tried it, it worked out really well. We were driving to Vegas, and for his birthday, and I was like, okay, we got these conversation starters, let's go. And I rattled off a question. He answered it in 1, 2, 3, and it was like 5 minutes. I was like, okay, that was quick. So conversation starter number 2, and then we went there, and it worked out really well. But yeah, so that was my tip: conversation starters. And the other thing is, if you guys listen to different types of podcasts, that will be great too, because we ended up listening to a few of his podcasts that he likes to listen to. And that was a good conversation too, because we started talking about the information that they were talking about and elaborating on it, and giving how we feel about the topic and things like that. So that was helpful as well. So I would suggest that too, listening to a podcast. The other thing that we're going to try to do, because we're taking a quick road trip to see one of his friends coming up, and I says, we have this book that we journal in, and it's got self-guided questions that we pass. It's kind of like our love story that we're writing. And so I figured, let's do that. I'll start journaling the rest of our love story, because we started it on our cruise to Alaska last year. When we went on our cruise to Alaska, we had started it, but with life getting in the way and things happening, we kind of put it on the back burner. So I figured, hey, let's do that. I'll journal our love story while he's driving, because he likes to do all the driving. I think he gets scared when I get behind the wheel, but I can't blame him, because sometimes I speed. But yeah, so what we did was we did the journaling, some of the journaling while he was driving. I wrote my piece, because they have you 2 questions, my version, and then I wrote down his version. So that's how we started doing things. The idea came to me from reading Five Love Languages. I read Five Love Languages back in 2017. A friend of mine, Daphne, brought me the book and said, you guys should do this because you are on that path and it's just amazing to watch. So we did the love language test, like I think half of the nation did, and it was great because we are actually listening and communicating in that love language. But reading the book, I noticed that one of the stories, one of the exemplars in there, the gentleman had trouble giving his wife words of affirmation. And what he would do was write down different things that he could pull out whenever he thinks that, okay, I think I should give her a kind word or something. And to me, that seemed like a jerkish kind of thing. Like, you should know that your wife is beautiful and shouldn't have to have a tablet to tell your wife she's beautiful today. But for him, it was difficult to give her those words of affirmation because he wasn't used to it. So it was easier for him to write it down. So I'm thinking, okay, that's a good idea, but at some point it should become second nature in my thought process, because I'm thinking the psychology portion of it, Pavlov's theory of conditioning, and the more you do something repetitively, it becomes muscle memory, second nature, right? So hopefully, I don't know how it ended in the book because it doesn't go into, does he eventually not need the book? But I thought about that in relation to communication and, our travel times and riding it in the car. And I was like, that's a great idea. I'll write down conversation pieces. So having the telling our love story was one thing. And then for our anniversary, he also gave me like this bucket list book. And so that's the other one that I turn to as well, so that we can start filling out our bucket list trips and when we want to accomplish those things. So I have a good friend, which you all have met, Ona Mills. She's our glam gloss queen. And her husband, she and Kevin, are having their renewal this week. And unfortunately, I will be in another direction when they do the renewal, and I will not be attending due to prior engagement. But I sent those books to them, so I'm really excited to see where they take it, because I always like to share things when it comes to marriage, relationship, communication with other couples that are receptive to it, and see what their take is, and kind of have a conversation about it and see how it has helped their communication or not, or build them to be closer. So I'll add that to my marriage segment when I get to that part. But yeah, so that is going to be an interesting thing. But I find that car rides helps with communication, because not only you get to know your spouse better and your spouse gets to know you better, but you get to ask those uncomfortable questions that you don't tend to ask on a day-to-day basis, because you have a captive audience, right? So he can't go anywhere, you're not going anywhere, and instead of sitting there watching the scenery, which is like my favorite thing to do, you actually have active conversation. So that's the time we also tend to go over different disagreements that we've had. And I don't call them arguments, because we don't, you know what, in the 5 years we've been together, 4 years we've been married, we haven't had like a blowout argument. We've had disagreements where I'm like, okay, I don't agree with you right now, but I'm going to listen to your side, and then I'm going to give you my side, and then we're going to move on. I don't say agree to disagree, because it really doesn't work very well with him. He doesn't like agree to disagree in his logical mind. So I just say, we'll reconvene and talk about it again later. So that's something that we do. So car rides actually helps us talk about other conversations as well that we didn't get to completely finish and it's still left hanging in the air. So I like to write those down as well, because sometimes you need closure on a conversation because you just leave it dead because you've said your piece, he said his piece, or whomever said their piece, and it's like, okay, we're going to go about our merry way. No one's really mad about anything, but nothing gets resolved as well. So, that's the time that you can take and get some resolution to some unfinished conversations that you've had. And also gain a better understanding on the perspective of the other individual as well. So take that moment and just write it down. I have a separate book for conversations to be had. And it's just one of those dollar store journals that I grab because I collect journals for some odd reason because they look so cute and I feel like I need another notebook. And so I collect them. And so I just grab one of the journals and write down one of all the conversations that we need to be had. And the conversations are uncomfortable, honestly, especially for someone who doesn't like confrontation, me. But it's hard to say, hey, remember that night you said this, and this is how I perceive what you said. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you meant by that? Because I took it in a whole different direction, and vice versa, because sometimes I could say things and he would take it in a whole different meaning. It's like, oh gosh, no, that's not what I meant. That's what you got from that. No. Then you get thoroughly offended because you hurt their feelings and that was never your intention. But, how we always say that the tone of what we say says more than the words that we say. So, I personally have to be mindful of the tone in which I say a lot of things. And I know this for a fact. And my daughter, who is my oldest daughter who lives with us, is notorious for this because she just says whatever and the tone is all jacked up. And you just stand there and look at her like, do you know what you're saying right now? Because it does not sound cool at all. So, yeah. So definitely have those conversations that, may have need to be had, and take that opportunity for those long car rides to reconnect. And I'm going to say, you're going to find that your communication with each other will be 100% better as you grow. Okay, because it takes time. This doesn't happen overnight, honestly. Having this level of conversation and commitment and connection takes time. And we actually built it this way from the day we met, because we both were in relationships that did not communicate well. And we said to ourselves, because especially since we got married so quickly, and that's a whole different story. I'll tell you guys that one day as well. But we got married so quickly that we set the standard right in the beginning. It's like, we're not having this. We're going to communicate. We're going to tell each other what's right, what's wrong, how we feel, whether we want to hear it or not. Because we spent relationship after relationship not having effective communication with our significant others. So we set the bar right in the beginning of our relationship, which I think is a great thing. And so for me to keep my end of the bargain, that was what I came up with, was to just write it down and make it happen. Have those uncomfortable conversations. And as much as we get older, don't like to talk about those intimate conversations, we need to have those conversations because we want to make sure we're meeting each other's needs. So why not do it when you're in a car, because you have a captive audience? He can't go anywhere, you can't go anywhere, And guess what? Once you let the cat out the bag, you got to catch it. So start there, and you will find that your relationship will continue to grow in ways that you never expected it. So so those are my little tidbits for car rides. And thank you, CJ, for the suggestion to talk about car rides and conversations with your spouse, because I didn't think about how much of a conversation that is needed for a lot of us, right? Because when we get in the car, we're used to watching the scenery go by, taking pictures, some of us sleeping, and our spouse is left there driving with the music. So, yeah, let's check back in and use that travel time to check in with each other, and just look at your spouse and say, hey, how are you? How have you been feeling? And then let it go from there. So thank you for joining me for this episode. I'm going to cut it there and let that kind of marinate. And if you have any questions for me, just email me, dc@thesoulfuleclectic.com, or you can leave me a message on my Facebook page, soulfuleclectic.com, or hashtag soulfuleclectic. And just check in and let me know how things are going. And if you have any questions, any show suggestions, if you want to be a guest on this show, just reach out to me. And some of you have my phone number. Definitely send me a text message and just let me know. So thank you. And as I grow and get okays from my RSS feeds and iHeartRadio, I'm still waiting. And who else is I'm waiting from? iTunes, Apple takes forever, and Spotify. So I applied to all of those. So I'm just waiting for their feedback, and they're okay. And then I'll let you know that I have expanded past the RSS.com. So thanks again, and I hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. Be well. So this concludes today's episode. If anything that was said today resonates with you or with someone in your circle that you want to share this episode with, and you want to share that information with me, please feel free to send me a message via email or my Facebook page. You can leave a like on the RSS feed that you are currently listening to me on. And just let me know how you feel, whether you like it or you don't like it. Any feedback to me is great feedback, because it shows that you're in tune to what I'm saying or what my guests are saying. And, it helps open up that dialogue. And I always like to hear other people's perspective on things that we've discussed. So thank you for joining me on this episode. And again, if you like the episode, join, subscribe, click how much you like it, and send me a message. The email address is dc@thesoulfuleclectic.com, and you can follow me on my social media. Currently, the Facebook page is up and running, and the Facebook page is called Soulful Eclectic. You have to drop the "the" on this one. And so whatever social media platform, website that you're listening to, or you are following me on, please subscribe, rate the show, your thoughts. So until next time, take care of yourself, love yourself first, because if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love and care for anyone else, right? So with that, I bid you peace and love, and I will talk to you on the next episode. Namaste.